President Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy spoke after meeting at the White House. Both leaders are pushing Congress to pass more aid for Kyiv. CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett joins us now. And Major, first, I just want to take a listen to what President Biden and President Zelenskyy had to say this evening.
Putin is banking on the United States failing to deliver for Ukraine. We must prove him wrong. The United States and Congress must, as I asked last week, it's stunning that we've gotten to this point.
We've already made significant progress. We've shown that our courage and partnership are stronger than any Russian hostility.
So I know the president said that, Ukraine has already been victorious in the sense of getting this far against Russia. But at the end of the day, President Zelenskyy is not walking away with a check in hand. So where do we go from here?
So it is worth noting that for nearly 2 years now, Ukraine, much smaller country economically, certainly much smaller militarily, has repelled a near or aspirational superpower invasion. That is not nothing. That is a significant military achievement. Having said that, the vaunted or much advertised spring and summer counteroffensive did not gain nearly as much territorial ground as the Ukrainians hoped for, and it didn't shift any of the political motives that the Putin government has to maybe sue for peace. It's at a stalemate. That's not my word. That's the word of Volodymyr Zelenskyy's defense minister, which did not go down well in Kyiv and has caused a bit of a schism between the two of them. And the political pressures around Zelenskyy in Ukraine are intensifying. Why? Because he keeps focusing, as he thinks he must relentlessly focus, on the positive appraisal, not the stalemate. But the stalemate is real. That's what makes this $61 billion request from the President of the United States to Congress all the more important. To put Ukraine on a better, more formidable potential fighting footing, it needs more U.S. assistance. That's the president's argument. Right now, it's stalled in Congress because it's not just about Ukraine or Israel, it's about border security. And that's a tough issue. And right now, the separation on that issue is such that everything else is delayed and hung up. And unless and until there is a rapid acceleration, kind of a light speed legislative change in momentum, which you and I have observed, it is something that does occasionally happen, but you need stronger, more concentrated political forces to shove Congress in that direction as rapidly as it needs to go. Absent that, this is going to lay over the holidays and face an uncertain future in the new year.
Do you think President Zelenskyy made any headway, particularly with Speaker Johnson? I thought it was interesting because he said he got mixed signals. But do you expect that President Zelenskyy may have another meeting with the Speaker, continue conversations? I mean, what is it going to take to kind of win more trust, if you will, between these two leaders?
I think it's important that Speaker Johnson said we need clarity on how we can help Ukraine win. Ukraine win, those are important words to add together in the same sentence. That's a sentiment that he doesn't have universal House Republican support for. And many House Republicans don't think Ukraine can win and are not even convinced that they should win or that that investment is worth what President of the United States, President Biden, says it is. They don't see it in the construct of, well, what happens? They're not as concerned about Putin having recaptured Ukraine, then turning his attention to the Baltic states or Moldova or Poland, all of which Zelenskyy did just say standing next to the President of the United States. So for Mike Johnson, the newly minted House Speaker, to say, we want clarity on how Ukraine can win is not insignificant. But he's not willing to have Ukraine win if he doesn't get what he wants in terms of border security policy changes, significant ones from the Biden White House, which, as CBS has reported, the White House now appears open to. It's only a question of speed, intensity, and can you get that done before Congress wants to leave town before Christmas?
In terms of Republicans' posture on this, though, could it potentially backfire on them? I mean, we heard the president reference, Russia propagandists are cheering on Republicans for blocking aid to Ukraine. So does this play into Russia's hands?
It certainly looks like as if it does. And Every time there is hesitation in Washington around Ukraine, Putin is encouraged, probably salivating, because, and this is not my analysis only, it's the analysis being written throughout Europe. If the Europeans and the Americans are not sufficiently committed to Ukraine, basically telling Russia, you'll always care about Ukraine more than we will, then Russia will never stop. They will live with this stalemated war. Why? Because they have more personnel, more military material, and more willpower. There has to be more willpower, more military equipment, more energy put into Ukraine to protect it from this Russian invasion and the collapse of its own sovereignty. So, with that, you have to have more energy, more spirit, if you will, conveyed through money and military material from the West, defined as Europe and the United States. And right now, that's wavering. There's a conversation about, well, can we bring, meaning the European West, Ukraine into the European Union? That's certainly possible. Zelenskyy talked about that. There could be a little bit more rhetoric and a little bit more energy from the European Union. Hey, let's do this. Another signal. Those signals still are a little soft. And everything that's soft or hesitant in this space encourages and solidifies Putin's calculations, both militarily and politically.
We also heard Ukraine's president talk about having dominance in the skies, but yet at the same time, we know the White House has been hesitant to provide more of that air power. How does that complicate the ask from Ukraine, if you will?
Again, this is a kind of a definition. I'm not expert enough to understand what Zelenskyy means by dominance in the sky. Does he mean super advanced fighter jets? Or does he mean capabilities to get rid of Russian drones? Because Russian drones purchased from Iran have been a very significant irritant for Ukraine trying to regain territory lost. I don't know how he defines it, but he needs more, whether it's Patriot missiles, whether it's anti-drone mechanisms, or jets from some source. Does it have to be the United States? Can it be NATO partners? I don't know. That's to be haggled and negotiated and sorted out. But the simple truth is, Ukraine needs more than it currently has, and it's not clear that Congress right now is prepared to provide it.
Even if that's the case, do you see a scenario where ultimately Ukraine funding and the border are decoupled because of the situation on the ground, and not only there, but also, I mean, Israel funding is tied to this as well?
I don't see it. Mitch McConnell, who has tried to signal to the White House for the better part of 4 weeks, and whatever you think about Mitch McConnell as a Senate Republican leader, he is pretty clear about seeing the way around corners. He's said for 4 weeks now, keep these things together, make concessions on border, and you can get everything you want. You take border out, then you're not giving House Republicans and those Senate Republicans who have identified this as a big issue a way to join them and a way to sort of take things that they're not so sold on for things that they are sold on. It makes it more difficult, to be sure. But decoupling, especially when the White House is now signaling it's willing to make policy concessions, doesn't seem to me to be a way to get everything the White House wants, or any of it, as rapidly as it wants.
All right. Well, to be continued. Major Garrett, thank you for being with us.
Thanks.